Flex your business with an American Express Business Gold Card. You'll earn 4 times membership rewards points on your top 2 eligible spending categories, like transit and electronics, each month, on up to $150K in combined purchases per year. Plus, you can now earn 3 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Terms and points cap apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold, built for business by American Express.
Build a routine with Ollie that supports your wellness needs, like getting your daily vitamins and minerals with Ollie's multi-gummies, or keeping your mood upbeat with all the vitamin D in Hello Happy. Give your gut health some support with probiotics, and wake up feeling refreshed after taking Ollie Sleep. Do wellness on your terms. Find Ollie at a Walmart or Target near you or at ollie.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
As character introductions go across like the history of cinema, I don't think you've got many better films that introduce a character than Adam Scott singing Sweet Child of Mine a cappella with his family in his car and just like berating them for not being, as good as he wants them to be.
Tune.
It's just, I don't know, there's lots of like little tiny sort of beats like that it is totally indulgent, but like I can see the actors having a lot of fun with it, and there's just an energy that I get off that, but totally get why that would leave a lot of other people feeling completely empty and bored.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher podcast. I'm joined by Helen.
Hello.
Al.
Hello.
And Cam.
Hi.
And we're going to be talking about Step Brothers.
Thank you as always to the mighty people for the mighty, mighty tunes. And thanks to Ben from Rockwood Audio for his awesome editing skills.
Please do remember to write a review and rate us on Apple Podcasts and anywhere you can do where you listen to the podcast, because it really does help us.
And you can join in the conversation with us on Twitter
at FlixWatcherPod and on Instagram
at Flixwatcher. Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher podcast. Joining us remotely today we have Kamil and Al. If you would like to say hello and tell our listeners a little bit more about who you are and what you do, please.
Hello, I'm Kamil.
Hi.
Hey.
How are you guys?
We're all good, thanks. Thank you. And yourself?
Big fans of the show. Really like the concept. So thanks for inviting us. I'm a producer of our podcast called Script Apart. So I never get to talk. Al is the host.
So for the night.
Exactly.
As a special treat, he's allowed on mic today.
Giving me an opportunity to speak up, which is very nice. Al, you want to describe our show?
So
as the host.
I'll give it a go. So I'm Al. I am a journalist, and I'm the host of Script Apart, which is a podcast about the first draft secrets behind great movies. So we talk to screenwriters, not about the finished film, but about their early draft where that film that we all know and love today was something completely different, or was this sort of, prototype splurge of ideas that hadn't quite become fully finished at that point. So yeah, I'm the host, and Cam's our producer extraordinaire.
Yeah, I'm also like a filmmaker, but somehow I found myself doing a podcast now about films, which is still nice, right?
Everyone's starting a podcast now. It's lockdown. There's all kinds of people getting involved. And you guys started recording this during lockdown, essentially, didn't you? So how has that been for you, getting in contact with the guys who wrote the films, basically?
There's been quite a lot of very successful people with lots of Oscars and awards in the background of their Zooms. And then there's been me and Cam with like our various bundles of laundry in the background of our
my toys,
Zoom
keyboards.
Videos. So it's been, to be honest, it's been like a total lifeline, and it's I can't speak for Cam, but it's definitely kept me sane throughout the whole shebang.
Yeah, definitely.
Someone actually came up to me the other day and was like, I get it, Script Apart, like the name, because you're apart because of isolation. And I was like, yeah, definitely. That's what it is. I'm that clever. We're that clever. It's just a name that sounded like ripped apart, but I'll take it.
That's deep. I didn't even think about that.
No, I didn't.
We came up with, we were thinking about doing a podcast like a year ago or something, and we were just always talking about scripts because we're such fond of films, and we're always like, oh, this movie could have been this, could have been that. And when we got to the lockdown, the quarantine, we're like, oh, should we just do this? We got so much more time now. And then the big idea, let's actually get those people from Hollywood, the writers, the creators, on our show, because they're in the same positions as we are right now. They're not doing anything. I mean, like, they're working remotely, but they got their microphone setups, they got their computers, they got their Zooms. And we just figured this is a good window of opportunity to actually make this concept so much cooler, right? Than just Al and I talking.
Yeah, I completely love the show. And I've read a smattering of scripts over my life, but I've always been aware of the difference that can be between the first script and the shooting script. And there's, what's been the largest difference in first script to screen, as far as you guys seen, based on the people you've spoken to?
Well, it can vary. I mean, we've had some guests where basically they nailed it straight away. We had Barry Jenkins on an episode talking about Moonlight, and he basically just smashed it out of the park first time. I think he was in Berlin.
Didn't he wrote in 10 days, didn't he?
Yeah, he just went on this whiskey-soaked tour of Europe and wrote it in cafes while getting slightly smashed. So yeah, there are some people who just knocked it out of the park first time, and it was a real kind of intuitive outpouring of creativity. And then we've had other guests who it was a real kind of labor, and the script that we've seen has had different endings and different characters and sort of abandoned story plots and all that sort of thing. So yeah, it's been a real mix, and it's interesting to see that creative process, but it's also kind of reassuring as people who write or try to write screenplays ourselves, me and Cam, knowing that it's not always this fully formed thing, this work of genius straight away. Sometimes it takes a bit of kind of finessing, or in some cases, a lot of finessing.
Well, I think one of the things I liked about your show, one of the many things I liked about your show, I should say, is how people talk about the collaborative process of when it's the scriptwriters themselves, and then when the director comes on board. Or with Barry Jenkins, he was talking about, a lot of the time it's kind of apologetic, saying, well, it's not really my story. I kind of just wrote what the stage writer wrote. But with Beck and Woods for A Quiet Place, I really enjoyed them talking about when John Krasinski joined and said, no, we can add these different layers to and move these things around. And they were just like, oh shit, yeah, that's great. That's absolutely great. I love it. So maybe you guys just need to find that director or that producer or that extra person to kind of peel back some of these things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of reading of behind the scenes of the films and trying to reach out to really cool stories. I mean, we haven't released the Blue Valentine episode that we're going to do. As we record, it might be out by now, guys. Exactly. So if you do want to listen to a Script Apart podcast and you're interested in Blue Valentine, go to their feed. Exactly.
If it's not there, subscribe, and then it'll wait until it arrives.
Exactly, and that's going to be a cool episode. And that's an example to coming back to your previous question about scripts, how they were different. That was a script that looked almost completely different in terms of dialogue. Maybe it had similar beats to it, but it was just, I don't want to spoil too much for the episode, but it's quite different to what we've seen. And it also has that collaborative effort between the actors, between Ryan Gosling and the director, writer, and Michelle Williams. So that's going to be a cool episode, and that's going to quite nicely give an example of what we're trying to do with the show in terms of just showing the process,
Well, we're talking about films and talking about scripts. Let's talk about the film that you guys have chosen. Kamil, you chose Step Brothers. Indeed, can you tell us why you chose it? And you have a super short time, less than a minute, to tell us the synopsis.
Well, the film is about Dale and Brennan, two men in their 40s, played by Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly. As I said, they're in their 40s. They still live with their parents, and they basically can't grow up. And somehow their parents meet, fall in love, get married. And because of that, they're forced to live with each other now. They're forced to live together. And that kind of also forces them to grow up because their parents are fed up with how they are. And and that's how the comedy happens, I guess. It's an R-rated comedy, which I thought would be an interesting choice for this episode, because I was flipping through basically your episodes, just trying to figure out what should we do, what could be fun. And I just noticed there's not that many R-rated comedies on there. And first of all, I had a question. Why? Why are people not picking R-rated comedies for such a discussion? And then I thought also because, it's Flixwatcher. It's all about Netflix, Netflix films. And one thing that you notice about Netflix is that they always have a big library of R-rated comedies. They don't really go away. They maybe change up a little bit, but you always have your Tropic Thunder. You always have Step Brothers. You always have Anchorman. It's always something that people want to see a lot. But at the same time, R-rated comedies, you could say, are kind of dead right now. Something changed in that time between early 2000s and, maybe till 2010 was the golden age of R-rated comedy. And I just figured it would be interesting to talk why they're not made anymore that often, and why at that time they were so big. So that's Step Brothers for you and my reasoning for it.
Well, I mean, a good way to start with that kind of train of thought is Adam McKay, who was the purveyor of a lot of these Will Ferrell, John C. Reilly R-rated comedies, as you said. He's now stepped away from that, and so much so that him and Will have kind of gone their separate ways in that respect. So that probably leans into what you were thinking there, Kamil, in terms of less of these kind of comedies going out. Or maybe people have just grown up. Helen, Al, what are your thoughts?
Well, I would probably say that maybe they're not very funny, and that if we're talking about Step Brothers, that maybe... it was made in 2008, but boy, wow. I've not seen it before. It's not really my target film, but I still wonder whether it was funny back in 2008, personally. So I guess who is the audience for R-rated comedies? And then really, if you think about who would find Step Brothers funny, I would probably say that teenage boys may be the target audience. And if you make an R-rated comedy, it's going to be difficult for them to get into the cinema unless they've got fake IDs or go with a brother. So maybe they just didn't make enough money at the box office for them to be viable.
I don't know. Al?
Well, I am a teenage boy, apparently. I'm coming to realize over the course of this, I own it. It's okay. I am a bit of a sucker for these kind of films where Will Ferrell is just shouting loudly, and they are, I think there was this trend with the sort of breed of film that we're talking about. There was this massive trend in the mid noughties of man-child movies. Yeah. So on TV we had Arrested Development, which does what it says on the tin, and in cinemas prior to this wave of Will Ferrell films, Adam McKay films, we had Adam Sandler in movies like Big Daddy, and there was this period of US comedy where adult men stuck in patterns of pretty infantile behavior was just huge. And there's some interesting kind of theory on the internet about was it the president of the US at that time, or coming out of that period, had something of the demeanor of a man-child himself, George W. Bush. And there's some interesting
that kind of leans into a horrible phase of hopefully post-2020 president coming out of that phase. If we're going to be, if that was reactions to George W. Bush, what's the reaction going to be to Trump?
Oh, well, yeah, that's the big question mark, whether cinema will even exist after. Yeah, but anyways, it's I don't know. I am sort of a massive sucker. Not all of these films, but there's a certain Will Ferrell hot streak, and for me, although my interests in movies kind of lay elsewhere, there's definitely, for me, I understand why not for a lot of other people, but for me, there's definitely a time and a place for just a big, loud, dumb Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly being idiots kind of movie. But yeah, you are not the first person who like I've met who definitely just like, this stuff is just like kryptonite to them, cannot go near it.
Is it all of these films, Helen, or is it this one particular? Well,
I mean, you mentioned Adam Sandler. I am famously completely avoid any of his films apart from Punch Drunk Love, Uncut Gems and Marriage Stories. I just don't find him very funny at all. And I think in terms of Will Ferrell, like I like Anchorman 2. No. So I think for me, he kind of peaked with Anchorman, and I can't really think of any of the other films from this era that I've seen.
Old School?
Yeah, I have seen that one. If they've got Ben Stiller in it, then probably. But
Ben Stiller, is he another man baby in some of these?
He would definitely be on the fringes.
He's got a lot of...
He's got the shouts, doesn't he?
He shouts, and he kind of plays like stressed out adult who's maybe surrounded by man babies.
Yes, yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
His is slightly different to the Will Ferrell thing, but it's basically what you've said about Will Ferrell, because kind of like shouting a lot and making noises was kind of his thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
I think
How about Elf? I know it's a little bit early in the season, but Elf is that?
No, I like Elf. Elf's got a lot of heart. So the heart that's in it, I think, kind of balances out like the Will Ferrellness. Yeah,
there isn't an awful lot of heart in the scene where Will Ferrell's character starts, rubbing his genitals on John C. Reilly's character's drum kit. Yeah, okay, point taken. Fair point.
And that's where it does kind of lean directly into teenage boys. And I think had I seen this at 15, it would have been the funniest thing ever. I do like Will Ferrell a lot, and but I take each one of those films individually. I don't kind of think I like Anchorman, therefore like Talladega Nights. I don't think Talladega Nights is that good. I think Anchorman's fantastic. Anchorman 2, I don't think it's that good. I like the other guys. I think that's really funny. But for me, Step Brothers just doesn't hit. And I think for a film like this, with those two guys, Will Ferrell, Adam McKay, everything just has to be kind of right. And in this, I just found it maybe just a bit too much in a way.
Yeah, it's
just a bit too much.
It is like the standard Ferrell thing cranked up to 11. Like the I think I'm a little rusty on the history. Maybe you know a bit more about this, but like from what I'm aware, I think they did Talladega Nights, and it was a pretty intense shoot because just like they're making this like racing car film. There was just a lot of noise and being on a hot track all day shooting those scenes, and to the best of my knowledge, they were just like, let's pare it back and get away from like a big concept like that movie had and like Anchorman had, and these kind of sets that films that involved big sets and big costumes and stuff. And this was kind of like the antidote to Talladega Nights, and they basically went into it from, as far as I can remember, there was like a really good ringer oral history of the movie a while back, and I seem to recall there was something about like they just had the idea, the moment in the film where they're like two adult men in bunk beds and one bunk bed collapsing on the other. They were just like, wouldn't it be, what's funny about that image? Why am I sort of drawn to that? And they basically sort of decided to make a film that was pretty much like, there was a loose structure to it, but they would just improv around these scenes where it's two adult men still living at home. I don't know. I totally understand anyone who it doesn't work for, but for me, for reasons I can't explain, it just kills me. And if it's ever on TV, I find it borderline impossible to turn off. It's just something about it. It's just like a real comfort food for me.
It's interesting what you said about it's come from this idea. One of the things that I like doing is reading IMDb reviews. And the one which I think kind of sums it up is basically you get the impression that they had more fun making this than the majority of people watching it. And it does kind of feel that they're basically taking these things which they've kind of gone, well, wouldn't that be really funny? And then they've gone, yeah, let's do that. And basically there's been no one to kind of go, not sure if like I'd find that funny, or like this person would find it funny. There's no kind of person editing the script or kind of saying maybe that might not work.
Yeah,
what were you going to say, Cam?
I was thinking that, like, I mean, at this point, there's a nostalgic element of it for me that, like, which helps me, like, appreciate the film a little bit more. Although, like, rewatching it, I was like, I don't know if this would have worked right now, would have made me laugh as much. But I remember watching it with my dad when I was younger, and my dad loving it, you know, because I think there is like what Al mentioned with just like grown men acting like babies, you know, like this kind of, I don't know, you know, people looking at it and it's, oh, I wish that was me, you know, and I have like it cracked my dad up, you know, he's a big fan of these kind of comedies for some reason. And it just, I think it's also nostalgia of that time in a way, of watching Wedding Crashers, of watching old school, like we mentioned, you know.
It's definitely
but it aged.
It's a time capsule, right? I mean, like if you tried to do one of these types of films today, it would have to look very different, and it like reflects the period that it was made in, right? Like, I mean, there are no women, essentially. The women are either sort of like, you know, mother figures, or, you know, comically, and I sort of hope kind of like self-knowingly, they are sort of like, you know, people to be attracted to and all that kind of thing. Like, it's not a film that has aged particularly well in terms of its like politics, perhaps, and in terms of its like, sort of a lot of its attitudes, I suppose. But for me, I still find something like that. Yeah, I think like partly because that improv energy, there's just something that propels it all the way down the line. And I mean, you mentioned that maybe the majority of people didn't like it or didn't take to it. But I think I think the film does have, among those people who love Will Ferrell, because it is just the rawest, you know, the most feral of all the Will Ferrell films. I think there's like a real cult fan base for it. And just like there's every now and again sort of like a tweet will pop up on my feed. It's the fucking Catalina wine mixer. And then I'm like, oh great, now I have to now I have the urge. I need to watch this film. Like I say, it's one of those films that, you know, I can't necessarily articulate the way I'm drawn to it. But and I think, Cam, you're totally right. Nostalgia is probably a big part of it. But yeah, there's just something about them talking about like, Shark Week.
I still say like, oh, so much space for activities. Oh, so much space for it. When I enter like some space, like it's a new room or something, like so much space for activities.
In fairness, I can see behind you, there is a lot of room for activities there.
Exactly.
I think there's a lot of things to say in support of this film. I know there's a lot of very smart people who love it to bits. I'm just not one of them. Maybe not smart, maybe don't love it to bits. But I don't begrudge people who do love it. Because, hey, why not? There are some scenes that make me laugh hysterically, and the first time I saw the bunk bed scene, that did make me laugh out loud, and I can kind of get together. And I do actually genuinely like the concept. These Arrested Development man babies not wanting their parents to get together because they hated it. So that's just, you know, projecting on experiences that people had when they were younger. When two different families get together and they don't get along and they want to split everyone up. And that's conceptually, it's quite interesting. But for me, there's just a few too many things. And it's a shame because I love every single person in there. I love Will Ferrell, I love John C. Reilly, love to bits Mary Steenburgen and Richard Jenkins, Adam Scott, Catherine Hahn. I love all of them. And it just, and that's probably why I take it down a few notches, because with all those people in there, for me, it just needs to be like super ultra tight to make it sing. And maybe I'm just being a bit too harsh, but
no.
When someone says it's the fucking Catalina wine mixer, I do laugh. It's a nonsense line. It's an absolute nonsense line,
and they say it like 50,000 times.
I think you've probably been a bit too generous, actually.
But I mean, I'm glad you brought up Adam Scott, because like the sequence for me, he's like low key one of the sort of best parts about the film. As character introductions go, setting up exactly who this character is across like the history of cinema. Like, I don't think you've got like many better films that introduce the character better than Adam Scott singing Sweet Child of Mine a cappella with his family in his car and just like berating them for not being, you know, as good as he wants them to be. It's just, I don't know. There's lots of like little tiny sort of, beats like that I can see it is totally indulgent, but like I can see the actors having a lot of fun with it, and there's just an energy that I get off that, but totally get why that would leave a lot of other people feeling completely empty and bored.
Ooh, what do you reckon? What are your thoughts on the other characters, the other actors that played in the film?
Well, my favorite actor of like the secondary characters, that's Richard Jenkins, and his thing with John C. Reilly, the father and son. There, that's the funniest. I think like even Richard Jenkins has like the biggest arc out of like the two main characters. He has the biggest arc in the film with just how like destroyed he becomes from just like dealing with them. So he starts drinking, but then he has to rebuild his love, you know, with Mary Steenburgen. And yeah, I just love him in the film. But also Adam Scott, like Al mentioned, is great. Like whenever he shows his oily abs, I always crack up. It's just so random.
That's just absurd, isn't it?
Yeah, we got Catherine Hahn, Rob Riggle doing the pow thing, you know. And it's just, I think like some of these people are still most remembered for those little bits in Step Brothers. Like they've done so many different comedic parts. Obviously, Catherine Hahn is a great actress, but like they still very much remembered for Step Brothers, which is kind of funny. But yeah, I think all the other characters were so well cast. And you even have Seth Rogen there for a little bit, right?
Oh,
so,
yeah, he jumps in, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So when we kind of set this up talking about these two, not man baby. Well, we talked about man baby films, but I think behind and kind of improv styling as well. There was two kind of main directors that were behind this. One was like Judd Apatow. Yeah. The other was Adam McKay. Where do you guys sit on those guys' filmographies? Do you have a preference between them, or you know, do you see a difference in? Can you tell the difference between their types of films when they come on the screen?
That's a good question. I think I prefer Adam McKay just because of the development of his career, and it's, you know, like Al said, it's the film is a time bubble, but also a time bubble for like his career as well. You know, like it's like we're in the next age of McKay right now, where he kind of became this satirical Oliver Stone in a way with his films, and you know, he did Big Short, Vice, Succession is also his show. So completely like he shifted his direction, and I don't actually miss him in comedy. You know, I think in a way, if Judd Apatow kind of lost his voice and like turned into something else, I would be missing him much more than I miss McKay doing these type of comedies. And I think in a way it was also time for him to move on. And I'm kind of happy about that, you know? So yeah, I mean, everybody always talks like Step Brothers 2. They always like ask him if that's going to happen, but I hope it never happens in a way. Yeah. Unless they're 70 years old.
Helen, do you have a preference over Apatow or McKay, or do you not care about either?
No, I mean, I kind of liked the earlier Apatow one, and then he just ended up unable to edit his films, and there was just no way I wanted to sit through 2 hours of it. And I don't think he's really developed or matured as such, whereas like Adam McKay, I'm definitely more inclined to watch the stuff he's doing now than probably Apatow, like if I had to pick.
Fair enough. Any more questions, guys, before we head to the scores?
I mean, I mentioned the idea of a sequel, but like, would you guys be ever open to see a sequel if they were like 7 years old or something? No, and there was a riff on that.
Can't be bothered. Cannot be bothered.
Oh, okay. I got another question. Do you think McKay will come back to a comedy?
I don't. I think he does too many other things in film and podcasting, which are just more kind of serious. I think he'll come back to a comedy, but I don't think it'll be like this. I think he'll do. Well, I mean, Succession's a comedy. I didn't know he was involved in that. Succession has got very comedic beats to it. So I think he'll be more along that kind of thing than just bringing Will Ferrell in to do some improv stuff. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think he'll come back?
I think, to be honest, like, I don't think he's strayed especially far Like, I think basically Adam McKay now, when I think about a film like The Big Short, right? The farcical, self-interested idiocy of like the characters in The Big Short, they're not like crazily far from like the farcical, self-interested idiots in Step Brothers. But like,
look at Vice as well.
Yeah, but the difference is these are like rooted in like real life and how like shambolic the real world is these days. There's an argument to be made that maybe like Adam McKay hasn't changed, maybe the world has changed, and I wouldn't say he's like, the films are more quote unquote serious now, but like I still see like a thread like that runs through Step Brothers to a film like Vice. Definitely. Do I think he'll come back to do Step Brothers 2? Absolutely not. He's done it, and that was a period in time, and it's, as we touched on earlier, it's really, really hard to do again now. So
he did do Anchorman 2, right? Anchorman 2 happened, and he didn't have to do that. Yeah, it was bad, but it was like his last foray into like comedy, right? But he, for some reason, he did it. I'm always like about like the relationship between the actor and the director, and sometimes they just want to work together again for any reason, right? It happens. But yeah, it better not happen.
I can wholeheartedly see Will Ferrell and him doing a film together. What kind of format it'll take would be quite interesting. Because Will he can put on he has serious-ish chops sometimes. But those two together, I think, would be, it'd be an interesting film when those two guys get back together, because they will do, I'm sure, at some point.
All right. Yeah, true.
Okay, let's head to the scores.
I'm Sam Clements, host of the 90 Minutes or Less Film Festival, another podcast in the Stripped Media family, a podcast that celebrates movies under 90 minutes long. Each episode, I'm joined by a special guest who selects a movie to join our prestigious lineup. Past guests have come from the worlds of film, television, music, food, comedy, and podcasting. Search for us now on the app you're currently listening to this podcast, or join us at 90minfilmfest.com.
So
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Go to Blinds.com for 40% off site-wide. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Welcome to the Flixwatcher scores. All of our scores are out of 5, and you may have decimal places if you wish. And we'll start with you, please, Kamil, with your recommendability.
Okay, I'm not going to go crazy. I realized what kind of film it is, and I said two and a half.
Oh, wow.
And a half. Yeah. I love it, but I also know what kind of film it is. And like, I'm not going around going like, you got to see Step Brothers. Because like, it's not for everybody. And yeah, 2.5. Like, it's just right in the middle. You know, it's either going to work or not.
So how do you kind of broach it? And do you kind of say, look, I love this film called Step Brothers. You might not like it, but you know, watch 5 minutes and see if you like it, kind of thing. Is that how you explain it to people?
You know, do you like testicles and drum kits?
Yeah, basically.
If you say yes to one of them, then yeah.
What's your favorite dinosaur? 3, 2, 1, Velociraptor. No. Actually, like to me, it's a little bit like like how you talking to somebody and ask them, "Oh, do you like dogs?" And because I love dogs, and someone's like, "Oh, I hate dogs. I can't." I'm like, if somebody's not a dog person, I'm a little bit like, we're not going to be best friends. Let's just say that, you know? And it's the same thing when like, it's just like something stupid like that, when it's Zoolander, when it's Step Brothers, old school, and someone's like, it's just stupid comedies. I'm like, I don't judge you for it, but you know, something in our relationship has just changed. So, I don't try to force it on people in any shape or form.
Al?
I'll go with the 3. I mean, it is that same thing Cam described. I have a real bad habit of like recommending people, and in particular my parents' films, and then completely forgetting what is inside that film. So it happened with Bridesmaids, And then it happened recently with Step Brothers. Mom, Dad, if you're listening, I am sorry. I forgot about the drum kit scene. Yeah. So I'd probably go with 3 again. It's like, I love this film. And I think for people who are just like, who have that sort of weird, yes, admittedly pretty teenage boy kind of like sense of humor, you will absolutely have an absolute blast and be quoting this film until like, you know, the end of time. But for everyone else, maybe not. So yeah, I'll go with a nice 3 in the middle. Helen.
Yeah, so as I said, this really isn't. It's not my genre of choice as preferences, and some of the choice insults. I mean, it's like, oh, I mean, even then it was probably a bit like, oh, is it funny? Can we be saying this? And even now, it's, yeah, I wonder who would come to this new now and be able to get on with that. But for all of the teenage boys out there, I'll give it a 1.
Harsh, Helen, harsh.
I'm going to randomly, I think I'm going to give it the high score out of everyone here. I'm going to give it a 3.5 because I think some people generally do really like it, and I can't begrudge that. There's some scenes in it which I think are really funny, and I love everyone in it, as I say. So I don't want to begrudge people having the opportunity to watch it because they might really enjoy it. For me, no, not the highest, not peak McKay, not peak Ferrel and John C. Reilly or any of those guys in there. So that's why it's a 3.5. Repeat viewing score, Cam.
I would say 4. I'm going to go pretty high on that because I think you can rewatch this film, and depending on your day, depending on how, you know, the way you saw it before, you might just find this joke funnier than the other one. You might see a new joke. You might see something in the background, you know, something on Dale's wall, you know, in his room, and just like laugh about that. I think it's just one of those films, which is a lot of those Will Ferrell films, you know, like Anchorman or something. You find new jokes in it. And
do you think it's that layered, this film?
Sorry?
Do you think it's that layered?
I mean, I maybe not layered, like, oh, there's like a joke underneath the joke, but
right.
I find after a couple of years, oh, this joke makes me laugh so much more now than it did 10 years ago. And, you know, yeah, I think a 4. 4 is good, you know, but I don't want to be too harsh on it. So I'm just saying it from my own perspective. When I told my friends I'm going to be doing Step Brothers with you guys, they were like, oh yeah, dude, Step Brothers. I'm like, I don't know, dude. I think they might crush me out there, but, so I'm speaking for me and my friends. It's a 4. Rewatchable film.
Ow.
I have rewatched this film a billion times, so I'm gonna have to give it a 5 for different reasons. Though I think like what makes it repeatable is you kind of like after a while, after like spending enough time with the film, you know which bits are coming. And when I talk about that comfort food element of this film, the fact that I've seen it a million times and know exactly what's about to happen, exactly like, you know, what's coming up, like just makes it so much more satisfying, and you sort of anticipate those moments. I just like, it's so easy to watch. It's a 5 for me.
Helen?
Just have you watched it together?
Oh,
is this one that you've like had the pleasure of like partying and watching it together?
We gotta see it together. Thank you, Helen. Let's watch it again.
We haven't, but that is an amazing idea.
I'm pretty sure we quote it sometimes.
Definitely.
Is this the kind of film that would they show us a Prince Charles?
Ooh.
No,
maybe he'd just be funny setting for it.
Maybe he'd be really into it, and he also would want to make a song called Boats and Hoes. We can't say.
Helen, repeat your score.
So I had to watch Parenthood straight after this to kind of like cleanse myself and watch Mary Steenburgen something good. I'm not going to watch this again ever. 0. Sorry.
Parenthood is a great...
Parenthood's amazing.
Yeah.
If we're talking about kind of like comedies and the longevity in that, and I've seen that so many times, and it's still really, really funny, and it still kind of has it's not gross out. There's a lot of heart in it. So I think the main thing for me with Step Brothers is there's just not really any heart in it. And if it is, I just don't believe in it.
I don't think there's any heart in it. Yeah.
So what was your repeat viewing score?
0.
I'm gonna go for 2.5. I don't think I would select it from Netflix, but if it was on the TV and I was more, just doing stuff around the flat, I'd happily, have it in the background. I might turn it up, and pause when more interesting things happen, and then just go around, doing other things as well. Or if you're on a plane with limited time, and you're probably one of those films I put on a plane when I'm feeling a bit tired, so I'm not that fussed about it at all. But you want something just to kind of take your attention away from stuff. That's where it kind of falls into into the realm of repeat viewing for me. So that gives it 2.5. Not that strong, but also I would watch it again. Small screen score, Cam.
I have a 4 again. Because I feel like what Al said before, how they wanted to make a smaller film, and you can see that they want to make a smaller film, and it is made for a TV. There's nothing in there that like really, it needs that big screen experience, and it's an easy film. Like maybe you're on a train, like, you can even put it on your phone. And like you said, Kobe, like you just, playing on like I'm doing something else. It's playing in the background. It's very much a TV film, and also one that you can keep on, like if you're just flipping through channels and it comes on, you can just like, keep going with it wherever you kind of find it. So it's very much a TV film. Yeah.
So why not 5?
I don't know. I like to be careful with my decisions. I don't want to get overexcited. Helen did a 0 there, okay? And everybody was like, whoa.
Listen, if you want it to score high, I'd give it all the points you can.
I mean, maybe it's because I remember my cinema experience of it with my dad, and then nothing's going to get as good as that experience. Okay. That's a 5.
There we go. That makes sense. It's a 4 then.
Yeah.
Al,
it's probably a 5 for me. I mean, yeah, Cam nail on the head. The big kind of films with amazing cinematography, I'm not going to watch those on my phone on like the train to Bristol or wherever it is I'm going. Like I'm actually not going anywhere at the minute because we're all in a terrible pandemic. But if I was, I'd stick something like Step Brothers on. So yeah, probably a 5. There's just nothing not to love about watching this. You're not missing out by being robbed of a bigger screen experience.
Helen.
Yeah, this is totally a home movie. There's no reason why you'd need to watch it. Unless you really want to see big testicles, then, I mean, maybe. I mean, you could just sit close to the screen. So a 5.
Yeah, I'm going to go for 5.
Great.
I wouldn't go to Prince Charles to watch this specifically, but I think if you were into this film, I can imagine you wanted to get together with your mates and having a session before going out on the lash. But for me, nothing cinematic about this in any way, shape or form. So 5. Was there any big songs in it actually? Because sometimes the soundtrack pulls us out of the...
See, I always enjoy a LCD sound system in the beginning. When the credits come on. What is the song called? American something?
I can't remember.
I don't know, but it's an LCD sound system, and it's always good to hear LCD sound system. Obviously, the ending. I mean, they're performing the song, but who could forget the scene in a way? And that's actually Will Ferrell singing, and that's John C. Reilly drumming at the end.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Also, the testicles cost $10,000 to make, Helen. So,
show some respect.
Let's appreciate the testicles a little bit. But yeah.
Cam, engagement score.
I might go a little bit lower. I'll go 3.5. Because I was rewatching it like 100th time now, and I noticed my attention going a little bit sideways, I don't know. Maybe it is everything that we've talked about. Maybe like I've grown out of it a little bit, Maybe it is the fact that it's not like a big comedy in terms of its execution, that something is just, you're just waiting for those moments. Maybe some of the scenes don't work as well, So I wasn't as engaged as I probably was with it like 5 years ago. So I feel like it's fading a little bit. So I gave it like a 3.5.
Al?
probably like a 3. I mean, you can dip in and out of it. It's essentially like a string of connected sketches. So like you could literally jump in at 5 minutes, come back after meeting a friend for half an hour, and like you're not going to be lost. It makes perfect sense. Yeah, I would still give it a 3 though, because there's just something about it that's just like attractive, and I do find myself just like pulled into that world and into like the idiocy. So yeah, 3 for me.
Helen.
So we kind of like started talking dates when we were going to do a record quite a while ago, and I started watching it and had to stop at a certain point, and then it wasn't until recently I was like, did I finish it? I was like, oh shit, I need to finish it. And quite a bit of time had passed, so a 1.
I'm getting it for 2 here. I don't need to pay attention. There's nothing subtle in this comedy. Nothing subtle in this at all. So, if it's on, it's in the background. And I did watch it kind of episodically. So, yeah, 2. And that gives us an overall score of 3.12500.
That's still not bad. Anything over 3 is decent.
Okay, guys, let's head to Twitter, and do follow us on Twitter. We are at FlixWatcherPod, because every time we record, we do put a shout out asking for people's opinions, such as in this case, we're reviewing Step Brothers with Al and Cam from A Script Apart. Have you seen the film? We'd love to know your thoughts and feedback. Sorry, Cam, you chose the film. Do you want to take the first review?
Yes. The Contrarians. I remember begrudgingly going to watch this with my friends, expecting to hate it because the trailer looks so dumb, then laughing from beginning to end. The climatic song is perfect. 4 out of 5 stars. Boom.
Next one, Al.
So this is from Movie Reviews in 20 Qs podcast. I've rewatched this more times than I will admit to, and still love it. 4 out of 5. It's just preposterously stupid, but sometimes you need that. Plus, it's the fucking Catalina wine mixer. And then there's a gif of Rob Riggle going, pow. So, yeah.
I don't know. Helen.
And the last one we've got is from Alex Elliott. The laughs get louder as the film goes along and as we become more attached to the brothers. 4 nutsacks out of 5.
So it's 4 out of 5 across the board for our Twitter reviews. Unfortunately, that wasn't represented here in the Flixwatcher studio, which is where it's important. But it's fair enough, guys. Al and Cam, can you sign off by telling everyone where we can find you online, and we'll say goodbye to the listeners.
So you can follow our podcast, Script Apart, on Twitter and Instagram. We're at Script Apart on both of those places. On Twitter, I am Al_Horner. And Cam?
Everything that Al said, and on Twitter I'm at Kamil Dymek. And guys, thanks for having us. I feel like the film worked in terms of having a good discussion. So that was my only goal.
That's why you chose it.
Yeah, so we have like a little bit of a battle, and I think it worked. And thanks for all the comments online, guys.
Thanks for coming on.
Bye.
Bye.
Enjoyed this episode of Flixwatcher podcast? Why not leave us a 5-star review on iTunes? You can also follow us at FlixWatcherPod on Twitter, and we're at FlixWatcher on Instagram. Thanks as always to the mighty people for their mighty tunes, and Ben from Rockwood Audio for his awesome editing skills. If you're looking to get your podcast edited as sweet as this, get in touch with Ben, and that's Rockwood, ROKK Wood Audio. Tell them Flixwatcher sent you.
You just heard a Stripped Media production.
These are violent criminals, so they're not going to go down easy.
ABC Tuesdays.
Let's get this done.
The Rookie is back.
We have 2 new rookies starting today.
Howdy.
Being a cop is stressful 24/7. Every year on the job is different.
And Training Day.
We have a serial killer at large.
Never ends.
We need an ambulance!
The Rookie. All new Tuesdays on ABC and stream on Hulu.